The Cleveland Cavaliers were the biggest surprise in the NBA this season. I and many others expected this team to once again be in the lottery, and at the very best, they were going to maybe make the play-in tournament as a 10th seed and lose before actually making the playoffs, but instead, they came out behind some incredible play from several of their guys and some very good coaching from JB Bickerstaff, and they managed to be firmly in the top half of the playoff race for the majority of the season. However, hard times have fallen on Cleveland. This is a cursed franchise without LeBron after all, and after losing Jarrett Allen to injury, they have now lost Evan Mobley to injury, and the team is free falling. They are currently 7th in the Eastern Conference, just barely ahead of the Nets for 8th, and at this point it is entirely possible that this team will fall out of the playoffs altogether. They may still make the play-in tournament, but the possibility of them losing one of those games is looking more and more likely by the day, and it's really sad to see because this team really was a shocker this year. They were a feel-good team to have this franchise that was left for dead when LeBron left to finally start to revive itself and look like a decent team. It was an incredible thing to see, and the future is still bright for the Cleveland Cavaliers. So today I'm going to talk about both what their chances are going forward this season for a little bit, and then what they're going to look like in the future. The Cavs have managed to win games this season mostly on the back of their super-sized defense. They have been playing Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, Lauri Markkanen, and Isaac Okoro as a starting five, and that unit is ridiculous. They have a great amount of length, and it's kind of crazy just how well this has worked because we are currently in the small ball era of the NBA. So to be playing three guys who are 6'9", 6'10", or taller in your starting lineup is borderline insane. The Sixers tried to do it a few years ago with Al Horford at power forward, and it was a freaking nightmare. So yeah, I'm a little bit bitter that the Cavs have pulled it off so well, but we're not here to complain about my Sixers and their terrible decisions in the past today. We're here to talk about the Cavs. Jarrett Allen has been a legitimate Defensive Player of the Year candidate this season, and it was really a shame to see him go out with that injury. I do not think at all that he deserved his All-Star selection, simply because guys like Jaylen Brown got robbed in his place, but he did have an All-Star caliber season. He gave you 16 points, 11 rebounds, and a block, and he was shooting 68% from the field, which is absolutely ridiculous, even when all you do is finish lobs at the rim. Darius Garland was a more deserving All-Star this season. This kid broke out of nowhere. At the age of 22, Darius Garland came out and he put up 22 points a game with 9 assists and 3 rebounds, and he shot 46% from the field, 37% from 3 on 7 attempts a game, and 91% from the free throw line. This kid was a super efficient scoring nightmare, and it's only more impressive when you see the offensive talent around him, because looking at this team, they were 20th in offense this year, and it's easy to see why. Being frank, they're just not a good offensive team. When you run this supersized defensive lineup, it's worked on the defense, surprisingly, but the offense is really slow because Lauri Markkanen has continued to be kind of a scrub. He's averaging 15 points a game, but he only shoots 44% from the field and 35% from 3, which is not great when you are like 7 feet tall. The dude is just not that great of an offensive player. Isaac Okoro is 21. He's very young. He's a good finisher around the rim, but his shooting still needs some work, so he's got some efficiency issues. Evan Mobley is a good offensive player right now. He's shooting 51% from the field. He manages to hit those mid-range shots really well, but he is still not any kind of a three-point shooter, and his finishing could use a little bit of work too. He's just a rookie. I think he's going to be a very good offensive player. And then Jarrett Allen, you know what he is. He's a great lob threat. He's a great finisher at the rim, but he doesn't do anything for you outside the paint. So with Colin Sexton missing most of the year due to injury, Darius Garland has had to really carry the offensive load on his own. So for him to not only be carrying the offense, but being as efficient as he is, absolutely incredible. absolutely incredible season from Darius Garland. I am really looking forward to seeing what he does next year when presumably this roster comes back healthy and he has some more offensive help. After those guys, however, the bench gets a little bit suspect on this team. Ricky Rubio was good for the few games he managed to play this season before going out with an injury of his own. He was a very solid backup point guard. Karis LeVert always has injury woes, and when he's played for the Cavs, he has still been an inefficient nightmare. The dude is, we know how good Karis LeVert can be when he's on, but it seems like he is on so very rarely these days. I really don't know if he can be a legitimate contributing player on an NBA roster, at least on one that is trying to win a lot of games. He clearly has the scoring talent, but he just can't seem to put it together on a night-to-night basis. Kevin Love has had a complete career resurgence this season. A bunch of people thought he was completely washed, and while he's definitely not the Kevin Love of the past, or even like his early Cavs days with LeBron, he has really looked better than he has since probably 2016 or 2017. He gave you 14 points and 7 rebounds this year. His shooting from the field was not good, but he did shoot a nice 39% from 3 on 6 attempts, so he's a great floor spacer, especially for a big man. Chetty Osman had a down season this year, but he's still someone who can be a solid player off the bench. Rajon Rondo was alright coming off the bench before he got hurt as well, and Dean Wade is a weird player. I don't know, I really haven't seen enough of him to say if he's got real potential or not. He shot pretty well this season. He was like a fairly efficient scorer on very low volume. We just need to wait and see if he can become a real rotation player for this Cavs team or for someone else over the next season or two. So this team has some depth. They are fairly young. Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, Lauri Markkanen, and Isaac Okoro, all 5 of these guys who start for them are 24 years old or younger, and the oldest one is Lauri Markkanen, who I wouldn't be surprised if he leaves in a few years, because again, he's just not that good of a player. Meanwhile, off the bench, you've also got Colin Sexton on this team, by the way, who when he comes back, we gotta wait and see what he's gonna do. Sexton is a very good scorer, and he's shown ability to be somewhat of a playmaker, but his efficiency can be bad. He can be a shot chucker. He can be a real ball hog, and I don't know how he's going to fit necessarily with Darius Garland, because if he's not at least as good of a scorer as Garland, you really can't justify giving him any of Garland's offensive possessions, because he's just going to hog the ball and take away easy shots from his other teammates. He has an issue where Colin Sexton, he really just starts focusing on getting his own shots up and he ignores everyone else. And I don't know, maybe it'll be helped with the team winning more, maybe with seeing how good this roster's done without him, he'll be able to fit with the team better. We just have to wait and see, but he's another very young player who has a whole lot of room to grow. Meanwhile, the other guys, though, like Kevin Love, I don't know what he's going to be like. Rajon Rondo is also pretty much washed at this point, and he's just getting older. We got to see how they fill out the bench in the offseason. But going forward for next year, let me slow down for a second. Let's talk about the playoffs. The best possible situation for Cleveland right now is that they win their play-in games, and they lose in 5 games in the first round to whoever they face, whether it be the Heat, the Celtics, the Sixers, or the Bucks. This team is getting swept in the first round most likely. Maybe they steal a game, because without Jared Allen and or Evan Mobley, there's just no way. This team can't defend Giannis, they can't defend Embiid, they can't defend Tatum, and they can't defend whoever you want to put on the Heat, Jimmy Butler, or, just the overall Heat team, the way they play. This team does not have the defense whatsoever without one of those guys, and it's possible both of them will still be out at that time. The Cleveland Cavaliers are not doing anything in the playoffs this year. It's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate. That's all there is to say. This team could have been an interesting first-round series. They could have been a tough second-round series, and instead, they're going to be a first-round sweep, most likely. But next season, when they get everyone back, they have another year to improve. Darius Garland can build off his amazing season. Evan Mobley can improve his offense a little bit more. Same thing with Okoro. Same thing, hopefully, with Sexton. And who knows, maybe even Lauri Markkanen will become a better player than he has been. I'm not holding my breath at this point, but maybe he'll become a decent NBA player. We'll wait and see. Next season, it's kind of crazy to imagine what the Cavs might do. They could be another legitimate contender in the East. Now, I am not betting on that. Let me say right now, everything would have to go right for Cleveland for me to call them a legit contender. Darius Garland would have to have another real jump. Evan Mobley would have to improve on offense significantly. Karis LeVert and Colin Sexton would have to get their own heads out of their asses and get their stuff together. Every single thing for this team would have to go right. Most likely next year, and the year after that, to be honest, this team's going to be something from a tough first or second round exit, simply because the East is so ridiculously stacked right now. You've got Philly, the Bucks, Boston, the Heat, the Nets are coming back, the Bulls are going to be around, the Raptors are a good young team. The Eastern Conference is absolutely ridiculous at the moment, so to say that Cleveland's going to make it out of the East, it's very hard to see. But the nice thing with all of these young pieces is if some of these guys start to get it together, Cleveland can trade some of them for another legitimate star contributor or just some good shooting role players, because my goodness could this team use some shooting. You take Colin Sexton and Karis LeVert when they're playing better than they have been, and you trade them for a really good 3-and-D player, or you trade him for another young up-and-coming star to put with Darius Garland and Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. This core could be together for a long time and could eventually become a team that can compete for a championship. I don't know how high Darius Garland's ceiling is, but if one day he is a borderline top 10 player, he could be the best player on a championship team. Now, too early to say. I'm not saying he's going to be that guy yet, because I just don't know that much about Darius Garland. I don't know if he's really that dude. But all I'm saying is that it is completely possible for this to be a championship contender in, my guess would be 2 years at the earliest, more likely 3 to 4 years, and even then everything has to keep going well for this team. The Cleveland Cavaliers, who are not a historically good organization, need to continue not screwing things up, which is a big ask for a franchise like Cleveland. Right now, all we've really got to do is wait and see. Cleveland fans, I'm sorry that your team got hurt this year. It really was a shame to see, but you should, fingers crossed, knock on wood, if your organization doesn't botch it, have a pretty darn bright future in the Eastern Conference with a lot of good young players.